only meant to enjoy a peaceful vacation with my wife and in-laws in Denver, Colorado. But everything veered off course the moment I stepped into a legal weed store for the first time in my life. With the giddy excitement of a child entering a candy shop, I walked out with a bag full of local specialties, including some innocent-looking mini cookies. A few hours later, I was sweating bullets in a fancy restaurant, trying to maintain composure in front of my in-laws. Spoiler, I failed. Spectacularly. I come from a state where any form of cannabis use is still illegal. A law-abiding and generally risk-averse citizen, I'd never touched anything considered a controlled substance, not even out of curiosity. But this time, stepping into Denver, where weed is sold legally like fresh vegetables at a farmer's market, I felt like I had just unlocked a new dimension. No sneaking around, no fear of getting busted, just a legal customer walking confidently into a sleek, well-lit store, where everyone greeted me with friendly smiles and lovingly red eyes. After breaking free from our tightly packed family itinerary, I convinced my wife to accompany me to a dispensary near our hotel. The first thing I felt was sheer overwhelm. Dozens of neat little glass jars sat on the shelves, each filled with a different strain of cannabis, with names like Purple Haze, Sour Diesel, and Laughing Buddha. The staff, who were way too enthusiastic, asked me about the kind of experience I was looking for. Relaxing, focused, euphoric? In a moment of naive excitement, I blurted out, "I want to try everything." So I walked out of the store with about 1/8 of an ounce of at least 7 different strains, plus a small bag of cookies recommended as a temporary solution until I found a suitable place to smoke. I thought, how strong can a tiny snack be? What I didn't realize was that I had just stepped into a world I knew absolutely nothing about, and that what I held in my hand could knock out a man twice my size if used carelessly. My wife, the only sane one in the situation, raised her eyebrows at the quantity I'd bought and sighed. "Do you even know how much an ounce is?" I gave her a sheepish grin. Apparently, middle school math had not prepared me for the cold, hard reality of weed measurements. After that professional shopping spree, she reluctantly agreed to buy me a small bag of weed cookies, just to keep me from whining before I could light up anything. The cookies came in a sleek package, looking like organic snacks from Whole Foods. A warning label read, "Caution, half a cookie equals 1 dose." I skimmed the note, still high on fantasies of ultimate relaxation after months of work stress. Back at the hotel, like a kid opening presents on Christmas morning, I tore open the bag, only to find a dozen teeny tiny cookies, each barely the size of a coin. I felt personally offended. What kind of sad excuse for a cookie was this? As someone who once ate a whole bag of Milano cookies during a movie, I thought the dosage warning was just scare tactics. At first, I tried to be responsible, promised my wife I'd take it slow. I carefully broke one in half, took a nibble, and chewed like a monk in deep meditation. 5 seconds later, I popped the rest into my mouth while she looked away. It tasted good. I got impatient. I ate another, then one more. I told myself, 3 cookies isn't that much. They just say that to scare off the lightweights. Mistake number 1, underestimating weed cookies. Mistake number 2, overestimating myself. About 30 minutes later, I started feeling off. Not quite nauseous, but like a brick was rolling around in my stomach. I figured it was the altitude, or maybe I ate too fast. But then the other sensations crept in, my heart racing, my head foggy, and everything around me slowing down like I was in a weird dream. It hit me. I'd gone too far, too fast. My wife glanced over, eyes narrowing. "You ate a whole cookie, didn't you?" "No," I said, avoiding eye contact and trying to sound totally normal. In reality, I'd eaten almost a quarter of the bag, and just a few minutes later, I would have to face the biggest challenge of the entire trip, an intimate dinner with my in-laws, while experiencing a level of high I can only describe as divine chaos. As my father-in-law's rental car rolled toward a restaurant whose name I couldn't remember, the back seat seemed to shrink. The air turned weirdly thick, and every bump in the road felt like a roller coaster drop. Every voice, every laugh from the front seat sounded warped and echoey, like I was sitting in an aquarium. My stomach let out a roar. Not a normal hunger pang, but a primal, chaotic sound like the drums of war. My wife turned to me, a mix of suspicion and concern on her face. "Do you have diarrhea?" she asked quietly. Altitude sickness, I muttered, clutching my belly, trying to act like someone with mild indigestion instead of full-on spiritual collapse. You sure you didn't eat a whole cookie? She asked again, more stern this time. Of course not, I replied, eyes glued to the window like making eye contact would break my cover. As we walked into the restaurant, all my senses went haywire. The lights were too bright, the sound of cutlery clinking was deafening, and the smell of food made me unsure whether to drool or run. I don't even remember sitting down, but I do remember the look from the waiter, polite but skeptical, when he asked, "Sir, are you okay?" Instead of thinking the answer, I said it out loud. "Stay calm, buddy." My wife let out a quiet groan, like her soul was slowly leaving her body. After we ordered, I tried to act normal. But normal was no longer part of my skill set. Sweat poured from every pore. My wife whispered, "You're sweating like a faucet," and handed me a napkin. My mother-in-law asked gently, "Are you all right, dear?" I nodded furiously and blurted, "The food's just a little spicy." Truth? The only thing on the table was a breadbasket. My wife kicked me under the table. "Bathroom, now!" I stood up and staggered like a sailor mid-storm. The restroom felt like a sanctuary. Harsh fluorescent lights felt like an interrogation. I splashed water on my face, hoping it would wash away the creeping delirium. As I stood at the urinal, time lost all meaning. A strange question echoed in my head. How long have I been peeing? 1 minute? 10? An hour? It felt like a lifetime. I tried calming myself down with basic math. If an average pee takes 60 seconds and I'm halfway through. But logic broke down when I saw the man next to me slowly inching away like a startled penguin. I wrapped it up, splashed more water on my face, and returned to the table with a shaky smile. "Sorry I was gone a while," I said. No one responded. They stared at me like I'd just returned from space. I tried making small talk with my father-in-law, but I couldn't understand a word. I nodded mechanically, sometimes saying, "Yeah," or "That's interesting," even when he was clearly talking about a bankruptcy case. I figured the safest thing to do was drink water. Lots of water. Water was salvation. But I'd already finished my glass, so instead of asking my wife to request a refill like a normal person, I stood up, grabbed my glass, and walked across the restaurant to find the waiter. And to top it off, I held my glass out like a dehydrated guest on a desert expedition. The waiter, to his eternal credit, calmly refilled it and whispered, "You might want to eat some bread." An actual angel. I returned to the table and devoured all the bread rolls like a man possessed. But then the anxiety returned. I began to fear that I was this close to being completely exposed. Just as I swallowed the last bite, my head started spinning again. Every noise in the restaurant doubled in volume, clinking silverware, nearby laughter, faint jazz music, all blending into one chaotic symphony. I gripped my glass, silently pleading myself not to scream, "Shut up!" I turned to my wife and whispered, "Do you think we should ask the waiter why the food's taking so long?" She stared at me like I'd insulted her ancestors. "What? We just ordered 3 minutes ago." And that's when the dam broke. She lowered her voice, her eyes wild. "How many cookies did you eat?" I swallowed hard. "Calm down, Torquemada," I tried to joke, but there was zero laughter in the air. "Just a few. Let's not make a scene." That was the final straw. "Really? They're 2 feet away. They know." I turned. She was right. My in-laws were staring, faces a mix of concern, confusion, and possibly regret. I could almost hear their thoughts. How did our brilliant, beautiful daughter end up with this? In the longest, most silent moment of my life, no one said a word. I just sat there, drenched in sweat, eyes darting, shivering like a soaked cat. The dinner vibe completely collapsed. And then, thank God, my wife stood up. "We're gonna head out. He's not feeling well." She wrapped her arm around me and practically extracted me from the restaurant like a Secret Service agent evacuating a head of state. I remember turning back, trying to wave goodbye with both hands, stiff like a malfunctioning robot. They didn't wave back. I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. As the door shut behind us, the world outside felt too bright, too real. I clung to my wife, stumbling like I was walking on the moon. She held me steady and whispered like a solemn prayer, "Please don't die. We still have a mortgage." That sentence echoed in my head like a sacred vow.